Welcome to the Medlic video tutorials. In this tutorial we're going to look at generating patient insurance claims in batch mode rather than in an individual account. To begin with, we need to go down here to billing. You open up the billing by clicking on the billing section, and we're going to do insurance statements, insurance claims, so click on insurance, and it's also the same thing over there. And note at this time, depending on your screen size, you can shrink this away by clicking on the list, so it gives you a little more room. All depends on how big your screen is. And on my screen here it really doesn't matter, but I'll shrink it down to like this. Okay, note we have some options here on the left hand side, and we have some information on the right hand side regarding reprints and some existing files. And then our two command buttons, the process claims and review claims button. Okay, to begin with, we want to set the billing options. First, there's a report generated after we generate our claims, and as we generate our claims, how we want them to be presented in our claims file. We have three modes. We can do it by account number, by last name, or by insurance carrier name. I like to do it by insurance carrier name, partially because the report that's generated after is more concise and it's all done by carrier name. The account number option gives it broken down by individual and takes a lot more pages to output the data. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to assume we've been entering charges and we have not submitted them either on paper or electronically to be sent to the insurance carriers. So we want to have the unsubmitted charges only option checked, because we want to generate only claims for those charges we have not previously submitted. When this is checked, the dates and data service options are disabled. Notice if I check it, they become enabled, and we'll come back to those. Okay, the next thing we want is we want to be able to do include charges left off form. When we're entering a patient's charge, let's go to a patient's account and just look real quick. We'll just edit a patient. Just go to case Keith Stacy. We go in and on a charge screen, and we can say leave this charge off the form. If we entered a new charge, we can say leave that charge off the form. There's a lot of reasons to do that. It may be pro bono work, it may be a sibling, a family, whatever. There's a lot of different reasons to do that. But you want a record that it was actually entered. Well, here, you could, if you had it checked over there when you entered patient's charge, you could come in here and say, okay, even include the charges that have been marked as left off form, because you may want to do that periodically. It depends on how your office works. The next couple options are paper claims or electronic claims. Do you want to generate your paper claims or electronic claims? Hopefully in this day and age, most of you are doing electronic claims exclusively, so it shouldn't be an issue. But if you do paper claims, you would check that. And then the last item here is the line item report. That's the report that's generated after we have viewed and saved our electronic claims and printed our paper claims. And then finally here we have the send claims. We can send the claims as selected. If you select paper claims, they'll go to the printer. If you select electronic claims, they'll go to file. Or you could say send them all to paper or all to file. This allows you to say, I want to look at my paper claims. You could click on paper, uncheck the electronic, and say I want to view all claims that are going to paper. I want to view them to paper, or I want to view them to file. If you set it to file, that means when you hit process or review, it's going to display it to you for a preview. Obviously, if you send it to the paper, whichever, if you have both of these set, if you say set that to paper, everything, paper and electronic claims are all going to go to the printer. That's not a very good way to preview your claims. Okay, but it's a nice feature, and the nice thing is you can generate your paper claims and electronic claims simultaneously. And then the line item report is just saying, yeah, I want the report afterwards. Then the patient status has these options. Any is always available, active and inactive. And I notice I have a few more. I have deceased and in collections. Those are defined over here underneath options. We can come down and we'll see we have somewhere here. We have, where is it at? Okay, I've lost it. Right there, patient status, active, inactive, deceased, and notice I had an extra space in there. I'm going to get rid of that. And in collections, and in the patient's account, let's just go back to our same patient we had before. In our patient's account, we have the status field, and this one here is set to be active, and you can change that over here underneath the patient status. You can set it to be active, inactive, deceased, in collections, and you can define this to be whatever you want it to be. Okay, let's get out of the patient's account. So back here you can say I want to generate based on this. I want unsubmitted charges, electronic claims. I want the report sorted by carrier name and only for active patients, or for any or inactive or deceased. I'm going to say for any. Okay, now this next option here is an advanced SQL filter. Eventually this will be replaced by another dialog, but at the moment it's very powerful, very flexible. It allows us to specify ranges of information. For instance, you notice here it says I want the patient's last name to be Jones, or I want the patient's last name to be greater than or equal to Jones, less than or equal to Jones, or I want the last name to be greater than or equal to Avery and less than or equal to Jones, or I want it by a patient number, all patients with an account number greater than or equal to a certain number, less than or equal to a certain number. I want the insurance carrier with a certain number, or insurance carrier name a certain way, or a certain doctor's mnemonic. There's a lot of other options there. These are just some examples. Like I say, one day it'll be replaced by a dialogue soon. But even now it's used a lot. If, for instance, if you wanted, let's go back to that same patient we've been clicking on, and if I wanted to generate all claims for that particular carrier, see his carrier is Aetna, and I can just simply come here and say I want to edit that carrier, and it comes in, and I can say his number, the carrier's number is 1002, or I could take the carrier name, I can say copy, and I can go like this, and let's come back to here, and then I could say for that particular carrier, where the carrier name is, and I can do a right click paste, is Aetna, and then it'll generate all the unsubmitted charges that are electronic with the patient status as any for patients that have Aetna as their primary insurance. Or I could say like, and then I can come in here and I can say Medicare. If I had a bunch of different Medicares, I can put that percent sign in there, and it'll say Medicare. Maybe it's Medicare South Carolina, Medicare North Carolina, or Medicare whatever it is. And if I wanted to just say meta anything, it would get all those. It'll get anything that has a meta in its first part of its insurance carrier name. And then when you're done using that, it'll remember that between sessions. When you're done using that, just highlight it all and delete it, so then it's not there anymore. Then we have the layout file, which defines which layout file we're going to use for generating our claims for paper and electronic. And that's more involved, and we need to come back to that a little bit later. But normally you'd want it set to the CMS 1500 NPI because that's the new form. And then the Edit Layout button allows us to edit the CMS 1500 layout. Okay, then over here we have the reprints. Normally when you're generating claims, when you hit Process, if you have Save Batch Reprint, it will save the date and time that these claims are generated, and it's going to save everything about them so that you can come back later and say reprint from batch, select the batch and have that batch date and time in there, and then hit Process again, and it will generate those claims exactly as generated before, with the exception of using a different layout. Now, it's very nice for coming back to a batch. And then this allows you to clean up some of the old batches you have, and this is the actual button to clean it up. And then down here finally we have the files that we allow you to save by default your claims in when you're doing electronic claims. And I have them set up to be in C claims, claims.txt, claims2.txt, claims3.txt, and these are set per carrier. So if we go look at an individual carrier, let's go back into Aetna again, we see that Aetna is set up to be send to file or electronic, print to file name, first one on the list, claims.txt. Okay, and notice there are other things here that pertain to filing insurance. Your box 11D, your place of service, box 24B, box 24E, what do you want in there, a number? Your group number for box 33B, the payer ID for electronic claims usually goes right underneath the carrier name. eligibility ID if you're have a clearinghouse that cooperates with that. These right here are the legacy numbers that go in box 24J. Options of setting those. You select the doctor, then you put the PIN number in or the alternate PIN, and you tell it, you direct for this carrier to either print a blank, the doctor's PIN, or the alternate number entered in this box right here. And then also for box 32B, when you're entering a charge, you can select the facility, and oftentimes it'll even be the doctor's office, which has to be entered into the facility or hospitals list. You'd put in the facility, this carrier says this facility has this number, and that'll go in box 32B. Not used very often anymore. Okay, so we've got all of our settings set up. Let's do a review. We simply do a review, and we see the insurance claims presented. We have 5 pages here for the Flintstones, 2 for Fred, 3 for Wilma, and then the other patients. And we can start seeing they're all checked off here. And we can slide down and see information that's on this form, see that everything's lined up the way we want it lined up. And this is just a preview of what actually goes in there. Now we can turn the form on and off right there by clicking on this. If you don't want the form, just turn it off. It's not necessary. Some people are actually able to print with this, and their carrier will accept it or hit a fax. That's why the print button's here. This button is not here for you to do printed claims to a red letter form. This is to print what you actually see here, but it's different than actually directing it to the printer. Okay, so this stuff is all set. We can click through here. We see our information changes as we click through here. And this box down here, if we had any warnings, like if we had a city missing or a date of birth missing or a phone number missing, it would show up down here and give us a warning. It'd say page 6, date of birth is missing. We don't have anything like that. And then you could just go back into the patient's account and make the fix. You can't do any editing here. It's only for preview. Now, if we're ready to send the claims, we would come back here and we would hit process claims, because this actually marks them as being submitted in the actual individual patient's account on each line item. So that's the only difference between the preview. If you look, the review claims and the process claims, the only difference is review claims does not mark the individual claims as being submitted, where process claims does. So then at this point we would hit save, and we'd save it to our file, and by default I told it to go to C claims, claims.txt. So I say save. If the file was already there, it asks me if I want to replace it, save it, or merge it. And I want to replace the existing file, so I simply do replace. And then I want to look at the report generated, and we see it's coming out per carrier. Here's my Aetna, then Blue Cross. Now I only have one page, and then I have my total down here. And at this point I can export this file to text, PDF, or whatever, and I can print it. I'm not going to do anything like that. And then here's my claim file. If I needed to, I can go back now and I can look at that file. I can look at that file, and we see we have all of our claims listed here just as before. Now at this point the delete button is enabled, so if I needed to delete an individual page, I could just simply hit the delete button and it'll be gone. I'm not going to do that, but we could do that. Okay, so at this point the claims are ready to be submitted. You can just go to your web browser. A lot of times you have it in here. You can have it loaded in as a custom program, so that you don't have to go to your desktop or anywhere, and just click on it and go, and it'll send your file, and then you go to your web browser and browse to C claims, claims.txt, and upload your file, or however your clearinghouse has it set up for you to do. That's doing unsubmitted charges. Everything is essentially the same for doing charges that may have already been submitted, or not necessarily. You don't really know what happened to them, the status often happens in a bigger office. So we'd come in here and say unsubmitted charges only. We uncheck that or deselect it, and we want to say we want to use date of service, or maybe you want to use date of entry. To me, date of entry is more convenient, but there are options, also reasons for using date of service. But date of entry, let's say that you say I did not bill anything from a certain date. Maybe I haven't billed anything during the month of May. or I need to rebill everything from the month of May. So you would simply just come in here and say, I need to do everything by date of entry 5/1/2008 to whatever today is, and let's just go down here and let today pick for us. Okay, and same options. And so now, regardless of whether it's already been billed or not, watch, we'll do a review, and we see that I have not entered any claims in during the month of May. So it says no transactions meet the criteria. Okay, so let's back it up and let's see if I've got any for the whole last month. We see at this point I do have some for the last month, and the dates of service, let's see, I set the 4/1. Yeah, notice I put the date of entry 4/1, but the claims here are 3/5 for those, 12/1. Some of them are older, different issues. So we could add those in if we wanted to. Let's say if we wanted to add those into the file, we can just say this, say save, and I want to say merge into existing file, append it, and then I could do my display, and I get my report back again, and same as before. So that's basically it. Now if I wanted to resubmit a whole batch, if for some reason they got lost in the clearinghouse, I could come in here to reprint from batch, select the batch date. Notice now, see, it says May 7th, 12/36. I can click on that, and if I hit process, it'll bring up the same form with the same information that I already have. But we're not going to do that for right now. Okay, I think that's enough for right now. What we'll do, we'll come back later and we're going to look at doing the HCFA options for paper and electronic claims and discuss how to alter the alignment of each item on the form for paper or for your electronic filing. That's it, and have a good day.